Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Wolok. My partner in crime, as always, Vasili Gianarakos. Vasili, what's going on, brother?
It's definitely a very interesting time to be a Flyers fan, I'd say. 6-game losing streak followed by a 2-0-1 stretch on the road, and then immediately coming back home and having a very disheartening loss to the Islanders 3-0, right off the heels of beating the best team in the league in the Colorado Avalanche on Friday in a pretty astounding fashion. So I think it's just all over the place really with this team. I think that's the best way to describe it at this point. The consistency is just up and down from game to game. And I just think when it's such a young team like this across the board, it's not something that we shouldn't have expected. Like I think at this point, when you have a team so young, these ups and downs are kind of par for the course until they start to learn certain things to stop, these blowouts from happening and things like that. But what
Yeah,
is your thought?
yeah, I agree. I think it's disappointing because were hoping that we were past this with how consistent they have been as a team this year up until essentially like the month of January. Things kind of fell off the rails a little bit for us from a consistency standpoint. And obviously the dropping in the standings and all that, it has people a little bit in a tizzy, right? Like I do notice there's like a lot of panic. Now people are talking about, it'd be best if they miss the playoffs. And I don't know, man. I think there is a little bit of an overreaction to this sample size, but also understandably so, just because there's trauma here, right? With the team going on, like you were talking about it, I think it was last episode, the dreaded 10-game losing streak. We've seen that. We've seen the team make a run at the end after, kind of fumbling. We've seen some of this stuff,
Yeah.
quite a bit over the past few years. So I think people are just kind of had enough. And I understand that. And I say that all the time is like, your job as a fan is just to enjoy it as a fan. I don't think that way. So it's hard for me to, I guess, I do empathize, but like, I can't,
Well,
I don't mimic those reactions.
my thing is this. I understand the frustration from people, which makes a lot of sense, right? To your point, if you're a fan, you've been watching this team miss the playoffs now since the 2020 bubble, so you could be frustrated. They're supposed to be in the midst of a rebuild, though. So what I wanted to kind of make that statement to open the show, and the reason behind that is we have to be realistic with ourselves, right?
Right.
Like this is a bubble team. The expectations of this team are that of a bubble team. A bubble team is very inconsistent. A team firmly in the playoffs typically is consistent. I don't know if we could say the Flyers are a team that was firmly in the playoffs. They were for a bit of a stretch, uh, maybe a couple of months, to begin the season. I don't know if that's enough of a sample size for me to firmly cement them as anything more than a bubble team. And I think that's my
Sure.
point is, hey, if this team is a bubble team, why is there such an overreaction to an inconsistency like this for a 3-0 loss? Like obviously they should
Or
have played
nothing.
a lot 4-0 loss, yeah. Obviously they should have played a lot better. It's a must-win game for them in terms of playoff implications. But I just think for me, I can't get up in arms about it because I expected them to be here and they are still remaining to be on the bubble as the season elapses, right?
Yeah, and again, that keyword used, their expectations, and we talked about this last episode. Our expectations were aligned with where the team is, so that's why we don't fluctuate as much with our emotions. Where other people, I think, they're a lot more like they see a trend and like, okay, the Flyers are finally good now, right? They have the sixth best record in the league. They're finally good. That's it. This should be behind us. Where you and I were always kind of thinking, oh, this is like a really solid trend. Hopefully they keep this up. But at the end of the day, me and you have been talking about this upcoming offseason for 3 years already, and understanding that we're like in the beginning of the year, we both had them missing the playoffs by a small margin, and that's kind of where we are right now. So for our expectations, I think that's why it doesn't rock us as much, right? Like you said, you see this the way I see it. One of the youngest teams in the league, taking steps in the right direction. And quite frankly, and I think it's going to piss people off, and it definitely is going to set off Twitter people for sure. But I think that's where Danny Briere saw this team. And that's why I don't expect a lot of, rumblings and changes and, fire, like people talk about firing coaches and stuff. Like all of that is
Well,
completely outside of the expectation bubble
I,
of
I
Briere.
think it's like a classic interpretation of firstly understanding how to win, but also understanding how to keep yourself almost even keeled, like as a team, as a player. I think if you're the Flyers, you go against, the Avalanche, hypothetically, you're not expecting to beat them. You do end up beating them, you're riding high, but how do you kind of get yourself back to that baseline so you're not going into a game like the Islanders here overlooking them? Not to say that they overlooked them, but it just seemed to me that they weren't as ready to play as the Islanders were. And how are you able to get that younger team, which the Flyers are here, to that baseline level? Maybe that's something on Rick Tocchet, right? That he as a coach needs to understand how can I get this team to perform more consistently, even as a young team?
And
Because we've seen it in certain games that they can look really good for certain stretches, right? But then they always seem to fall back and underwhelm shortly after, like they can't keep it up for a certain amount of time. And I think that is due to the fact that there's just a lot of young players on this team still learning the day in, day out habits of being, a solid professional NHL player and how to put those habits to effect in order to actually get results in the league. So
Yeah, and Rick Tocchet took that ownership on himself. It's exactly what he said in the press conference, right? He's like, the record after wins is bad. I think it's like 4-11-3 or so. I can't remember the exact record, but it's a substantial losing record after winning.
yeah.
And he took it on himself. He's like, that's on me. He's like, I'm the one who's not getting them ready for, the following game. So totally agree with what you're saying there. Before we move forward with the show, let me just get through the usual opening stuff, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of the show. Just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for notification. Get notified when we release these episodes. And for the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes and give us a rating if you can. Again, that is the best way to support this show. We would humbly appreciate it if you haven't done that so far. Also, shout out to our sponsor, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's. They have one of the best, if not the best, cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Make sure to go to Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Also, Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for your insurance adjustment needs. They will help facilitate the process between you and your insurance company and make sure you get the best claim possible. Again, Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. And also want to give a brief shout out to our partner, SportsSpider.com. Guys, if you're tired of searching multiple websites for sports news, SportsSpider.com has you covered. They collect the latest articles, videos, and podcasts from around the web and organize them by your favorite teams. If you want to stay as up to date on our Philadelphia Flyers or the NHL in general, hit the link in the description of both the audio and video versions of this show, sportspider.com. Make sure to check them out, and always make sure to check out flyersnittygritty.com. So like Vasili was alluding to, obviously the Flyers coming off a massive win over the Colorado Avalanche. They had an explosive third period. They put up 4 goals in that period. Really big nights exceptional night from Owen Tippett, who had a hat trick and 1 assist to add to that. Michkov, 2 goals, 1 assist, a +3 on the night. It was really collective. Like a bunch of guys put up points that night. Denver Barkey had a really nice goal set up by Michkov and an assist as well. And the Flyers hung in, with the best team in the league and had a really good game. Stopped Colorado 4 times on the power play. Were 1 for 2 They were 1 for 2 on the power play. And again, stopped Colorado's power play completely. So coming off that awesome high, then coming into the game against the Islanders, they didn't exactly put up their best performance. And I agree with Rick Tocchet. I don't think the Islanders particularly played that well. It was just kind of like a lack of maybe gumption is the word, assertiveness. They had an opportunity to take over the game. There was that deflating goal. And I would say that's the only goal that bothers me. Not so much the shot in front of the net, but just that the way he kind of played
You could swallow
the
that
dump
puck up
in.
as a goalie.
Yeah, or at
Um,
least whack it away, you know.
yeah,
But
I think
it was
he
a
was
bouncer.
anticipating a defenseman to get back a lot
Yeah,
quicker,
yeah,
which didn't happen. There was really no back check there, which is pretty unacceptable. Especially considering you had a really good power play to start off. You should want the puck on your stick. You should want to kind of regain control quicker. So, yeah, just not ideal on that power play chance for the Flyers, and that kind of gave the momentum to the Islanders specifically, and they really never relinquished it.
yeah,
For the remainder of the game, right?
because they started off strong.
Yeah.
The power play looked really good. The one with Michkov and Barkey, and gotta notice Owen Tippett on the point. Just want to
Yeah, we
say that
talked about it
that
last show.
happens all the time on this show. That we bring up a suggestion on this show, and then it shows up on the ice. Um, but yeah, it was a promising start, and then it just completely fell apart.
I
Where
will say too, like Yariv, what's interesting, sort of cut you off, is the parallels. If you look at the parallels
I was
between the
just about to
color,
say this,
really? That's
literally
hilarious.
about to say this. Go ahead, go ahead.
If you look at the parallels between the Colorado and the Islanders game, it's basically the opposite situation for the Flyers. Like they start off super slow in Colorado. Colorado's basically taking it to them. They end up scoring that goal, and then from that point, the sorry, one sec. Yeah, they end up scoring the Tippett goal, and then they kind of flip the script. They get the power play chance. Barkey scores on that power play
Yeah.
chance. Then Colorado obviously storms back, makes it 3-3, and the Flyers, in the third period, they really, are aggressive, even though it's a tie game. They kind of realize, hey, like we blew the lead again. We don't need the same thing to happen to us that it did in Utah. Let's kind of get back on our horse here. And they're
Yeah.
super aggressive to start the third period, push the pace. And I think that's how this team needs to play to be successful. I think when they're sitting on their heels, we kind of see that they're not able to generate much. And that's what happened in this Islander game. It was kind of the opposite, right? So the Islander game, the Flyers start off red hot. They're being super aggressive. They have that power play chance where Tippett rings one off the crossbar and they're looking really good. And then once that goal goes in on the power play shorthanded, it kind of deflates them. And then they just stop being aggressive from that point, stop being assertive. The Islanders kind of take control and have the momentum, and they just are not able to
You
regain
know,
that. And I just find it interesting that you can see two tales of this Flyers team. When they're aggressive and assertive, they're and confident, they just look so much better in terms of the execution. When they're not pushing the pace, we kind of see how another team can take advantage of them. So
yeah, when they're moving through the motions, they look like a whole different team. But there is the element of away versus home to add into this too, right? You're playing away against Colorado. They're all over you in their home crowd. That's typically the case. The home team will come out more energized a lot of
yeah,
time, and you have to kind of withstand the initial attack. In this case, the Islanders did the exact opposite to the Flyers, right? They withstood the Flyers' initial attack, scored that shorthanded goal, and then just took the momentum away from them. And the Flyers kind of did the same thing to Colorado, right? They were getting hemmed in, but they managed to score first. There is that momentum confidence game that kind of
I,
underlying in all of this.
yeah, it's just concerning because obviously the team realizes probably the implications. It's a 4 point
It was
game.
a big night.
mu
It was a
must
big game.
win must
Yeah.
win type of game. And we do mention, it's a young team, they're inconsistent, but I think even though they are young and they are inconsistent, they need to realize as a collective group as well that hey, we might not have an opportunity like this to regain this type of footing in the standings, right? It might have just slipped right through their fingers here. So hopefully they try to take the upcoming games more seriously in terms of the effort and the consistency, just because you could see once that goal deflated them, they just had no gumption or idea of how to get the momentum back offensively. Like just pretty unacceptable in terms of like offensive chance creation, because other than those initial chances on the power play, they really did not create much at all offensively. So it's just not
Yeah,
great.
it was a disappointing game to watch. I honestly, when they were down 3-0, I'm like, I can't wait for this game to be over because it never felt like they were even gonna score a goal to get a comeback
Well,
going.
that's the thing. Like you would think like, hey, let's really try to press here and get a goal for our goaltender. That's pretty much not to say he's being left out to dry, but really no run support for your
Yeah,
backup goalie. And you can't expect to win a game like 0-0 or 1-0 or something. So I just think in terms of like the offensive output, obviously not great, but I think it's kind of a theme against these Islanders. Like we were talking before the show offline that it just seems the past decade, like these Flyers Islanders games are just so boring and there's not a lot of offense and it's usually the Islanders like taking charge. It's very one-sided for them and it's just frustrating games against the Islanders.
Yeah, it's funny. That used to be our reputation playing the Rangers, I feel like, more than the Islanders. And now it's kind of shifted that the Islanders are more a pain in our butt than the Rangers. Even when the Rangers were good, the games were at least like more entertaining and, full of drama. And the game really lacked that. It was
The
a,
Islanders games are just boring.
yeah, it was the Islanders are not a very, they have talent, but they're not a very interesting team. They also, um, I don't think they're going anywhere this year. To be honest with you, like I think assuming they make the playoffs, maybe they'll make it past the first round, but
If
I don't.
Sorokin gets hot, that's their key to really
Yeah,
winning anything, right?
maybe, but the other teams also have good goalies. I don't know. I don't see them as like a Stanley Cup team. I really
No,
don't
not
even
this
think they're really
season.
better than the Flyers, to be honest with you. I Other people might think that. I think maybe because of the Flyers' injuries,
Yeah,
the
I will
fact that
say
Vladar is not in that.
Matthew Schaefer is very impressive. So once he continues to develop, like that's going to make them a really
Yeah,
good team this
he's
year.
fantastic. Look, we would have loved him. We were never in a position to get him. But yeah, I
Any
agree.
team would have loved him,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
exactly. Defensemen like him don't come along all the time, as
Very
like,
rare,
yeah,
very rare.
coming
But you can
into the
jump
league.
right into the NHL like that and not miss a beat.
Yeah,
That's
look at Simone Nemec, who was a second overall pick for New Jersey. He's still struggling to make a name in the NHL. So it's like, just because a guy was taken high doesn't mean he's going to come in and do what Schaefer did. But also, incredibly impressive player. But Michkov was also incredibly impressive in his rookie year. There are sophomore slumps or all that. I think he'll probably avoid a sophomore slump, I think. But we'll see. Right now, things are going well for the Islanders, but those games were just disappointed. And you know what's unfortunate, man, is I feel like Sam Ersson, while like you and I have tried to defend him, and I'm not like married to keeping him in the organization, I do feel like some of his statistical blunders he just seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like
he's
he
always in these blowout games,
yeah, like
unfortunately.
like games where the Flyers, and I don't think it's because they lack confidence in him. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think he's had some bad luck here, right? And it's like when he went over to go play with Sweden, his numbers were insane. When he played in the World Tournament, and you look at with the Flyers who are inconsistent. He himself is inconsistent, so you double that up, it makes it worse. But I don't think he's like the worst goalie in the league.
No.
He's definitely had some bad games this
There's
year, though.
some games where he doesn't have it, and there's some games where he's really on. Like look at the stretch last week against Utah, Colorado. Um, who's the first team they played? It's escaping me on that road trip.
Uh, what with Utah?
Yeah, like they played Utah, Colorado, and
I'd
then
have to look, dude. My
they
brain
played
is
Vegas. Sorry, yeah.
Vegas. Yeah,
That was so like that whole stretch, right? Like he played really solid against Vegas. Not the greatest game against Utah, but made some really 10 bell stops against Colorado in that first period to keep the Flyers in it. So like
yeah,
we've seen points where he can really be an asset. But I think his inconsistency coupled with the team's inconsistency in front of him, it just puts him in bad situations.
yeah.
And the fact that this season he's the backup essentially, so he's always playing in those back to backs where the team might not have the most energy. Like he's just been in spots where they've gotten blown out consistently, where Vladar hasn't had that same like tough luck schedule, I would say.
Yeah, I mean Vladar's also been a lot better, but I do agree with you. I just think it makes his numbers look worse than they
Yeah,
are, but his numbers still, even without the bad luck of the Flyers, he still has not been good. But I do think it's exacerbated the
yeah.
problem with him, which is why you and I are still confused on what to do with him
But
going into like season.
last game aside, like I can't really be mad at him for that Islanders game. Sure, you want him to play that dumping on the power play a little bit better so they don't get scored on. But like if you're not scoring any goals at all, I cannot blame the goaltender for that loss. So
Yeah, I think there are some momentum, like the D'Angelo goal. It would have been a tough save to make. Don't get me wrong. It
he's
wasn't an
wide
easy,
open,
soft
first
goal.
of all. So
But you make that save on D'Angelo, that is potentially momentum changing. That is
yeah,
what Airson has not been able to provide on a consistent basis. He did against Colorado, right? But on a consistent basis, coming up with those big saves in that moment, that is what he lacks on a consistent level more than anything. He's also good for one bad goal a game, pretty
yeah,
much. So he hasn't been good, but I also, like we were saying, right? Like it's just, it's easy to pile on the goaltender, but there are nights that the Flyers haven't been that good, and that Vladar's had a really good season. So he's been better. He's changed the momentum for the Flyers in games. And we didn't get
yeah.
that with the Islanders game, though. Like he didn't
No,
play that well either, right? He was kind of just like he was average, and the team was below average in front of him,
yeah, and I
right?
think in a must win like that for the team to only put 21 shots on net, like there has to be some way as a team, the coach included, for them to inspire some sort of confidence in the intermission or something. And hey, like we need to get some spark to our game here. This is a must win, and we are not putting just put the puck on net, right? In those
I
situations, see
think
what happens. So
I think that canceled practice because of the weather probably hurt them.
their
And
execution, maybe, yeah.
yeah, probably just like too much time off,
But
2 days off,
but
no hockey at all.
to your point though, did the Islanders have a practice?
But probably not. That's what I'm
So
saying. It's
they
not
were
an
sharp,
it's not an
right?
excuse. It's not excusable, but I think it probably played into the problem
Well, it
as
definitely
well.
seems like this team, when they have more practice time, they execute a lot more efficiently. And I'm sure that's the case with a lot of teams in the league, right? The
Yeah,
more
yeah.
you're on the ice, the more reps you're doing, things are going to flow a lot better and you're going to be more connected as a
Yeah,
unit.
the two guys who were consistent over the past two games though are Michkov and Tippett. Both had a great game against Colorado. Tippett particularly played like a superstar in that game.
Yeah.
Who he's been good for a while. Michkov has been the one that's inconsistent, though. I will say of late, even when Michkov's not putting him points, he is creating opportunities.
He looks
People
way
are
better.
people are having trouble finishing his opportunities, and he's having a little bit of finishing problems himself too, but he's definitely starting to look a lot better. It does make me feel a little more encouraging for the Olympic break, that maybe that break might benefit him and he might have a strong end to the season. But at this point, I've kind of just relegated like it's a whole new ball game next year, and that's why also I'm not that invested into this year as much as like other people are. Like even if they were to make the playoffs, I'd be excited. I'd be all into it. I'd be like maybe they can win a round or two, whatever. But at the end of the day, like I kind of know where my mindset is with the season, especially with Michkov like not having a monster season. I still believe it's in him, so I'm hoping that next year, like that is such a game changer. And then you throw in the Porter Martone, you throw in the Luchenko, you throw in the other young guys that could be making an impact. Barkey, um, you throw in the other young guys, and that's where I kind of get more excited. So let's talk about a little bit of injuries. So Ristolainen returned. This was awesome. I didn't see it
I
coming.
wasn't expecting it. I thought he would be out a lot more long term,
Yeah,
but
we were talking
I,
about like what do we do
yeah.
with him at this point?
I would imagine for Ristolainen, probably his goal, at least as a player, is hey, let me get back here so I can participate in the Olympics because who knows when he'll have another opportunity to maybe participate for Finland. So I would imagine it was something that he definitely wanted to return for because of that. So it's definitely just a good thing for the Flyers that he was able to come back and for potential trade capital as well. Like um I don't anticipate they'll move him maybe in season at the deadline unless they get, their rockers blown off with an offer or something. I think a team would have to overpay, but I think like we've talked about for the past few weeks in the off season, there might be an appetite to move him, especially with some of the younger defensemen knocking at the door. So I think it'll be an interesting time for Risto, and it could be a next, 6 month situation where he's kind of showcasing himself maybe to other teams potentially.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna have that. I think the organization could, but I think just for him to get back, probably more just focused on playing hockey, right? But
Yeah.
I do think it's important that the injuries don't pile up on the team. I think that's how they fall into quicksand. So him getting back, which is what makes the 4-0 loss even more disappointing. Like you just got Risto back. You give up 4 goals in that game. You have the full 6D playing. Um, Unfortunate, but it is still good to hear him. Good to see he's back, and good to see it's not another long-term injury. That would have been more, especially if it was the same injury,
Yeah, definitely.
because that would have been probably
Do you,
career-threatening at this
uh
point.
do you think there's anything that plays into, hey, they won in that Avs game. They should have just kept the lineup the same, and that messes with the mojo? You think there's anything that plays
Uh,
into that?
no,
Okay.
unfortunately, no.
Me
Um,
neither. I was just interested to see your thoughts.
no. I mean, there's usually something to that, but the lines were generally the same. Risto just came in for Juleson. Like it shouldn't have been. It's not like Juleson was like lights out or whatever. He was fine. He's
Yeah,
been
fair.
fine all year. Um, the other big one, we're still waiting for a real update on is Dan Vladar. We know he's close, and we know that he could potentially start next game. I wonder if now, after this loss, like maybe he would have started today, but Ayerson played so strong against Colorado that you want to give him the next game because he earned it. Maybe we might see Vladar in net next game. Kolosov is still with the team, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's no word on that quite yet, but we could get an update on
I
that when within an hour for all we know.
Yeah, I believe that if there wasn't the snowstorm, there was supposed to be practice, and Vladar probably would have got a full practice in with the team. I think
True.
that was the
Good
goal that they
good point.
had.
Yeah.
So likely means that he probably will be back either Wednesday or Thursday. I would guess with the loss, Wednesday makes the most sense. Try to get back into the win column, but we'll obviously see what the Flyers have in store. I would say like Columbus is at the bottom of the division. You might want to try to get that win against Boston. But we'll see what they do with the goalies. It might be something you try to kind of maybe give Urson Wednesday, give Ladar a little more time, and then go
Yeah.
back to Thursday.
We might, and people won't love that Harrison will be back in net, but again, they're gonna do what's right for the
Well,
players.
you don't want to
Right,
rush a
exactly.
guy back, and I don't know. I would say like winning that game, taking on Boston's probably more important. Just if you look at Boston being in that final wild card, right?
Yeah.
So you might need that win when it comes to it if you're trying to battle for that playoff position. That's
Yeah.
something to think about for
And you
sure.
do have Columbus, who's a weaker opponent. You know, you gotta kind of, play your cards right there. So we'll see. Hopefully we get an update on Vladar pretty soon. So special teams, we kind of talked about it already. As of right now, sorry, I had this open in front of me. So the Flyers penalty kill sits at 20th in the league, 78%. Still, had a great game against Colorado, but then obviously gave up a shorthanded power play goal, but then also gave up a goal on the power play or on the penalty kill. The power play, at least after the Colorado game, got out of rock bottom.
Yeah, they're
Shows how
30th right
bad.
now.
Yeah, now they're 30th in the league with 15.6%. So I will say the power plays looked a little bit better of late.
Barkey, Michkov, Tippett specifically, like they have chemistry. They're moving in and out of lanes. They're cycling the puck around. That's exactly what you kind of want to see on a power play. Pass around, kind of move around, get in lanes where maybe the opposition isn't covering and take your shot. That's kind of what they've been doing. Like they were feeding Tippett nonstop to open the game up. You know what? Like it's kind of crazy too. If he scores on that goal, instead of hitting the crossbar, how different do you think that game goes? Probably
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
completely different situation, which it just shows, right, the momentum, how important it can be.
It
But
it snowballed on them, right? Like not scoring, getting scored on. Having said that, you need to be better than you need to be, and they have been this year, like stronger mentally. They've been really
yeah,
good at getting scored on first and ignoring those goals. So it is kind of out of character that they did that. But yeah, the power play, I think I've been seeing a lot more of the, 2-pass shoot. That was the most consistent thing I noticed. It's a lot more just like 1-2, 1-2 pass shoot, 1-2
yeah,
pass shoot. This is kind of what I was talking about, like not overplaying the puck. Actually, I was watching the Islanders on one of their power plays, and I noticed that they were passing a lot. I was like, they're not scoring on this power play. Anytime I see a team just sit and just pass and pass, I was like, there's no
Well,
authoritative energy on here. I was like, it's not scoring.
my thing with that Michkov unit is that you could easily see Michkov was looking to set Tippett up time and time again. Like he was kind of surveying around, waiting for Tippett to get open, then feeding him, and Tippett was either trying to one time or kind of do a quick shift and just take a snapshot. And I think that's what they need to do more of. Like identify who's open to take that shot, try to feed them the puck, and get traffic to the net as the individual takes the shot. Like
Yeah.
just be simple, especially since the power play hasn't connected at a very efficient rate at all lately. And it's good to see that Tippett's utilizing that one timer because that's kind of what we talked about last week on the power play, that they don't ever utilize his shot, and he has a huge shot. And we saw last night, at least for the opening power play, that they had him up at the point. They were kind of trying to utilize that one timer up there. We could see the impact that it has when you have a blistering shot that does connect on the net from that distance. So I just think they should keep that power play intact, and maybe on the other unit, try to identify Konechny or Zegras as that shooter. Either Zegras on the flank or Konechny's kind of good on that left half wall as well to take shots. But you need to have some sort of, okay, who is shooting on this unit? Because there's just been too much of a lack of that for the past few years. If they just don't know who's gonna actually take the shot,
I
right?
despise it when I see that stuff too. It drives me insane. The one thing it does make me think too, with the chemistry that him and Barkey just keep developing, like why can't we swap Barkey and Brink? You know, like I'm like at this point, you know, like they're not scoring on a consistent basis. The third line, the second line, why not? Why not try it? They obviously have some really good chemistry going.
I
Maybe
would be
Brink
for
could
it, yeah.
ignite. Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be worth a shot, to be honest with you. But you know, that Couturier line
Has been good,
has
so
been good at 5-on-5. They don't give up goals against, you know, so kind of understand that. I think he still Tocchet still doesn't trust Michkov that much defensively, even though he has been especially if we consider the beginning of the season, considerably better at 5-on-5. But you know, we'll see. I guess we don't really know exactly how these lines will stay if they continue to struggle. So then we could see some more drastic shifts. Like we saw Zegers taken off the top line and Michkov put on the top line, like Taki kind of recognizing that he was outplaying Zegers in that game. And I think that's
yeah.
also been a worry, right? Is that Zegers is kind of quieted after all of his heroics. I think it's probably temporary. People are going to make some kind of big thing about it. It's almost maybe good, get his price down a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
I will say too though, like he's a playmaker, so sometimes he's making passes that impact the game a few seconds before it really like comes to fruition on the ice. So he might make a pass that ends up leading to a play. You don't see that in the score sheet, but if it wasn't for that initial pass, you're not getting the puck up the ice in the first place. So I think with his skill set, it's a little hard to just identify only with points because he's such a good distributor. But to people's point, even though he hasn't been scoring as much, he's still been getting assists the last few games. So I think for Zegras, it might just be like, sometimes you've been on a line for a while, like Dvorak, Zegras, Konechny. How often do we see lines like that last a full season? It's pretty rare. Sometimes you need to shake it up, right? And
especially
and
when you're playing inconsistent hockey as a team, you
yeah,
know?
you got to find different combinations sometimes and see what's working at that time. So
Yeah. So, next topic, before we get in the second half of the show, I want to talk about the mindset of the Olympic trade deadline versus the actual trade deadline versus the off season. I do notice that it's kind of all being mixed in one, and online at least. And I think there's some credibility to that because if you can make a move for something for your future because of where the Flyers are, you know, it's worth to make it in the season if it's the right move. You know, you don't have to necessarily wait for the off season to make an addition of a guy that you think will be with the team. Like if a guy like Zegers is available in season and you can make that trade in season, but notice that that trade didn't happen during the season, it happened in the off season. So we have to kind of set our expectations accordingly on what kind of trades these actually are. For those who are maybe not aware, which I doubt is most people listening to this, but the deadlines are primarily made for teams who are in a solid playoff spot, who are looking to add talent and not remove from their roster, and typically give up younger assets. Now, Vasili, you pointed out that Ristolainen could be an option there. I think they probably will have some conversations of Risto. I don't think they are giving up on the playoffs, at this point, and nor should they. So they're not going to do what I'm sure some people online are suggesting, which is to sell every veteran on the team and give up on the playoffs because of a bad month of January. Um, I think they'll probably wait. Now, what I think is really going to happen with the trade deadline for the Flyers specifically is they will have serious conversations and nothing will materialize. Um, and I think if something were to materialize, it will be during the actual trade deadline, which will be later in the season. Because they're kind of in a weird spot, right? Like they're still in a playoff push. They still could make the playoffs. They could be tempted to add something, but it will not be something substantial,
I
right?
would
So,
say it would probably be something minor, right? Like we think about that fourth line center position, Lane Pedersen kind of filling in there for a little bit. That's probably a place they would want to look to upgrade, maybe at a minimal cost. So that might be something they're interested in potentially doing if they continue to hover around this bubble for the next few weeks and say, hey, we're still in the mix. There's still a chance. So let's maybe try to part with like a fourth rounder or something like that to get that fourth line center. And it could be for maybe beyond this year as well, right? It depends on obviously who the player is and things like that. But I think that would probably be it. I think at least for this regime, what we can potentially earmark and look at, and I think the Zegras trade is a perfect example because we know Danny Briere and Pat Verbeek talked about Trevor Zegras years in advance and talked about him when the Cutter Gauthier Drysdale trade was underway as well. So I think Briere is definitely a GM that will feel out conversations, talk to other organizations, see what might be on the horizon for them in the offseason. So then he can, resume that conversation maybe when that team is ready to make that bigger move, right? So I think he's always putting the feelers out there. And we know how the NHL is, especially with like a hard salary cap league. It can be hard for teams to actively make big roster moves within the season just because a team isn't always going to be sure how their season is going to look like and how they're going to be managing their financials moving forward. So I think for the NHL in general, other than like you said, those buyer teams, we're probably not seeing a ton of movement because usually most teams are going to be doing a lot of the trading in the offseason, right? So I would imagine the same is going to continue here for the Flyers.
yeah, the only guy I could really see the Flyers moving off from, assuming that they're outside of the playoffs by the time the actual trade deadline hits, is Carl Grundstrom. And they wouldn't get much for him either, but you
Depth
look at his
piece type of thing.
Yeah, you look at his contract status. You look at the success he's had with Philly. He's kind of turned his career around. Doesn't make too much. You could eat half his salary, so one of these teams could add him in easily.
Yeah.
But a guy like that, or at least maybe it'd be like 30% of his salary, just to get him to the bare minimum waiver number, like $1 million or whatever. Well, I think it's 1.1 million. But he wouldn't get you much in return. But it is a guy who's a UFA. The other guy is Hathaway. Now Hathaway has been struggling offensively considerably, but he does bring other elements beyond offense. Like that's not his bread and
He
butter.
can grind for you. That's what teams are looking
Right.
for his game, right?
But he does have like a larger cap hit, and you'd probably have to eat 50% of it to move him.
I would say
Um,
Juleson is the other candidate, right? He's a
yeah, maybe.
UFA,
Yeah,
seventh
true.
defenseman. You won't get a lot back. It'll be like a fifth rounder just because he's that type of defenseman. But teams might be interested, especially if the market's really bare on depth guys. Everybody wants that seventh defenseman just to have, right? In case
Yeah.
there's a huge injury. So
I think those guys that are rumored throughout the year, like the Thomas and
that's
the
all off-season stuff. They're
right,
just too
exactly, the
big.
Peterson.
They're just too big of transactions, I
It's
think, to make in the season. So
it's possible. It's just finding the trade partner that's ready to take on large amounts of salary
yeah.
is a lot harder. right, in season.
For sure. I
You
feel
know,
like
we've
too,
seen it, but it's not common.
it's rare, and I feel like too, if you're St. Louis, right, they're trying to get the best possible package.
Right.
When you're dealing at the trade deadline, you're not
You're
always in,
limited.
yeah, you're not always in a position of strength. So you can't really gauge maybe the full package you would get for all teams because some teams might not be in a position to add that salary. Whereas let's say you waited 3 months, then a team that couldn't add, maybe they made some sort of move beforehand at the draft or something. Now they can make that trade for Thomas. So you're, like you said, you're effectively limiting yourself on what you might be able to acquire in return. So I don't see a GM like Armstrong doing something like that. I just
The the
typically they
only
don't work that way, right?
the only guy I could see the Flyers be interested in trading for is Artemi Panarin. Apparently the cost is like a first round pick and a prospect for the remainder, probably similar to the Giroux value.
It's possible, yeah.
Kind of what he garnered, right? Like a good prospect and a first round pick for Panarin for a playoff run. But I think the Flyers would legitimately be interested in re-signing him. I did see his ask is somewhere between 10 and 12 million, which is what we speculated for about 4 years. That would put him at 38 by the end of his contract, maybe 39, depending on when his birthday is. So um, I think the Flyers would be open to it. I can't see them jumping the gun during
Yeah.
the season, but they
Well,
are kind of a team that is like looking for a boost. It's just, are they looking for it right now or are they looking for it over the next 12 months?
yeah, I
Right?
agree.
It's like it's different. It's like they
We
don't need it
point
necessarily right now.
Well, we point to the offseason, like we said, that this is going to be an offseason where they try to make a big move. Not to say that Panarin wouldn't be that because he's, perennial
I
100
think they'd
point
be
player.
interested for
They
sure.
would. And there's that connection with his father-in-law. They have him as their like Russian correspondent or whatever he is with the team. But I think at least with Panarin, the thing that you have to be kind of wary and careful of is, first of all, he might want to be sent to a playoff team, right? Like he kind of can dictate that. So
Yeah.
that could be where you might lose out just because the Flyers aren't in that mix. But
Only if he wanted to sign here long term afterwards and where the Flyers are going, yes. But I do agree with that statement. Yes.
no, but I would say that like if you're Philadelphia too, why would you want to give up a prospect and potentially, somebody else to the Rangers that could come back to haunt you? Maybe Panarin will be a UFA and you can just pursue him in the offseason. It's that might be the risk though if he gets traded to another team, they try to extend him and you kind of lose out on that
But
opportunity.
whatever team he's going to is gonna have a tough time extending him, right? We were looking, the only
Yeah.
one really is Carolina, and
Has cap space, right? So
quite frankly, I don't see him wanting to stay in Carolina unless it's about money, which maybe it is, but he picked New York, right? Like
for
I
a
do
reason.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, like he clearly wants a certain lifestyle as well. And not that Carolina is a bad place to live. It's not at all. But he might want a big city, he might opt to go back to Chicago just because he wants to be in a big city type of thing.
Yeah, it's possible.
Might be like, oh, I want to go to the Islanders then, or I want. He's gonna have,
Choices, yeah,
he's
for
definitely
sure.
gonna have choices. He could also do Jersey, and New Jersey could find ways to free up cap space. But I do think it's a conversation the Flyers are gonna be part of. The Artemi Panarin. I think he's a veteran. He's damn good.
I
He can have
agree.
really good influence on the team. He is a winger. It's not primary
I think
to our
that's one
needs,
caveat though. I will say like
but
you got to think about long term in a sense of hey, you could pursue Panarin, he could bring value to your team, but do you want to tie up that $12 million potentially for 4 years in an aging winger? So that's something that they'll have to gauge,
well,
right? Like
I
the
don't
front
think the
office.
Flyers would want to sign him at 12, but I think they'd be open to 10.
Yeah.
Um, 10 for 4 years, something like that. Again, we'll see. It's complete speculation on our part. But if you do bring in a Panarin, you talk about trading wingers out of here to try to make space.
You're gonna
Having,
have to at that point.
yes, but the problem is who's the winger? You're not trading Michkov. You're not trading Martone. You're probably not trading Owen Tippett, especially the way he's playing this season. You're not trading Konechny. You're not trading,
Zegras, technically he's on the wing as well.
yeah, well, yeah, that's true. And you're not trading Forrester, right? Like,
Someone's got
so
to go. So Brink is definitely gone.
yeah, I think
Uh,
he's gone anyway,
I
personally.
would say, I mean, if you're trading for Panarin, and you're the Flyers and you extend him, or if you're signing him in the offseason, the way that I would look to build the team, and I mean, my opinion doesn't mean anything, so take it with a grain of salt, but
Sure.
the way that I would look to do it is, hey, we just signed a potential 90 to 100 point winger. We need to move 2 to 3 wingers for a center because nonetheless, there's no room
Well,
for half of these wingers, right?
that's what I
So
was saying. I was like, it does give you that opportunity to be like, okay, now we reshuffle our deck a little bit. We move some of our assets where we're stronger and try to get, maybe it's a moving. I don't think they want to trade Cates, but I'll just maybe it's Cates and Brink and a first round pick or whatever. So then they
and a
can,
prospect for something really, really good or
yeah, and then they
something.
shift Zegers over to the middle. You have Luchenko step into where Cates is, whatever. You play around with things because you obviously have Dvorak here now.
Yeah,
So I don't know. They'll have to. This is
there's
why it all seems like
options.
off-season stuff to
For
me.
sure, but there's options. But I just think when you're looking at the Flyers, even if you take Panarin out of the equation, for me, like your wing depth is substantial at this point. So even without Panarin, we talked about it before, like they're gonna have to make some sort of subtractions on the wing because there's just not room to fit some of these younger guys into the system. It's either make a subtraction from your current roster or make a subtraction from your prospect base that was supposed to graduate to the NHL because there's just won't be room, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's a problem. They're in a weird position, and the off season, like I have it sorted by UFAs by point per game. Malkin is the top
he's
guy.
going back to Pittsburgh, I would
Yeah, if
imagine.
he gets
So
re-signed, he's going back to Pittsburgh, or he'll go to the KHL. I don't know actually. We don't know.
he's
But
having a really good season
yes, he
for a
is
39-year-old. Him and Crosby, they're
40
kind of
points in
timeless.
36 games. Panarin's number
Playing with
two.
playing with like Anthony Mantha and Brazo,
Yeah,
which is like classic Pittsburgh stuff.
yeah. Darren Radish at D is one of the top point producers. Yeah,
Tampa will sign him though,
a
I
hundred
imagine.
percent. He's having a stud like year. John Carlson's gonna be a UFA. He's 36. I imagine he's gonna re-sign short term. Nick Schmaltz is an interesting one, but
He's gonna get paid.
also like we have Dvorak. Like, what
He's gonna
is
get paid though, just because the market is so thin at center. He can kind of play center. So
sure, but that's what I'm saying. It's also not the type of guy we're looking for.
I
Really,
also think Utah will want to resign him because they just have
yeah.
him and Keller are really, really good together. So
Claude Giroux is out there as a UFA this
bring
offseason.
back the captain.
I said it last time. Um,
I would bring him back. I like
yeah,
Giroux,
there's not
but
a ton of options like Anthony Mantha. Again, there's some pens on
the
this
trade,
list.
the trade route is kind of what we talked about for the
Right.
last few weeks, and that just seems like it's going to be the most, um, not to say the most like the easiest way that the Flyers can add, but if they're trying to add for their positions of need, it's probably going to have to be through trade because the UFA market just does not have centers at this point.
Yeah. And even if they do, it's not the type of center that we need to make ourselves successful, right?
We
It's
have too many depth centers at this point. We need
right.
that top end, skill type center
Yeah.
essentially.
I
So
mean the Flyers might opt to try to convert Zegers back to center. I mean, that might end up being so this is why it all seems like off-season stuff and the trade deadline, like maybe like you were saying, is a fourth line guy that they think could have more of a scoring punch. Like, I hate to knock on Peterson because he's kind of put in a tough situation, but he's been invisible the entire time he's been up here. Like, I don't really understand what kind of huge value he brings. At least Obels had like he was noticeable. He had a role. He
yeah.
wasn't a playmaker,
I
but
mean,
played PK.
I would rather have Anthony Richard up because at least he's noticeable when he gets a shot. He's not a center. But
I
like,
mean, that's the problem, though, is that
yeah, they have no centers. That is the problem.
they lack. I will say Ryan Paling is a UFA this offseason. Just saying.
Bring him back as a fourth line center, maybe.
Yeah.
He's a
Um,
pretty good fourth line center, though. Like if you're looking for what you want out of
I
your
think
fourth
they'll
line
probably. I
center,
think they're gonna re-sign him. To be honest.
Anaheim?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably, most
Yeah.
likely. But I'm just saying,
Um,
like, you want a guy that he doesn't have to score for you every night, but speedy, impactful. You notice Paling on a night-to-night basis. Like Abel's, Peterson, not so much. Though Abel's, I mean, was a lot better, obviously, but even still, they were trying to upgrade on him potentially. So
Scott Lawton is a UFA this offseason.
he will sign back with the Leafs, though, I'd
Yeah.
imagine.
But yeah, they're gonna have to look for kind of a more playmaking center option. Um, there are some names that might be available for trade, but I just, I think it's more about just set your expectations properly for both of these trade deadlines. There is a chance the Flyers could surprise us if it's a name, it's nobody you've heard. I did see a rumor online about Nico Hischier. Um, and I could not validate it anywhere because I'm like, why the hell would New Jersey trade him? But that would be like, if he was available, that would be like lights out. But that's kind of what I'm hoping that Luchenko can turn into because he hit 80 points once, and he's more of a goal scorer than Luchenko will be. But again, it's that speedy two-way center. That's what I'm hoping we have in Luchenko. I think the Flyers are just going to be more patient. I don't think they give a shit about any of these internet lists or any of these YouTube videos about what they're saying about Jack Nesbitt or Jet Luchenko. They don't care about any of this stuff. People online care about it. I
Yeah.
don't care
I,
about
I
it,
would say
but they
this, like
don't.
I think it's pretty clear they don't have a clear-cut number one center in their system in terms of a prospect. Could those guys overachieve and maybe turn into one? Nobody knows. Nobody has a crystal ball, so we cannot say. I would say it's probably the goal of this management staff to add a more skilled either one or two C that they can play in this lineup
I
in
I
the
will
next few years. That's probably a goal of theirs. And then maybe you have your internal prospect slot behind that person, then your depth is pretty cemented,
Well,
right?
I will say with having Luchenko and Nesbitt, you could make the case that like you see them both as second line center guys. So maybe you could opt to move one of them in a package to get the type of center you're looking
That's
for,
possible as well,
right?
definitely.
So that is probably out there. And again, these are guys that other teams were also very high on.
And want to
Not
try to
just yes,
acquire. Yeah.
not just the Flyers. So get all that nonsense out of your mind that you see on the internet about how people are telling you Jack Nesbitt. And also, let's not forget about Berglund, who's also in the organization, whose stock has probably gone up after his recent play in
Especially
World
across the
Juniors.
NHL for
Right.
sure.
So the Flyers have some centers. They have assets to make trades if they need to. That's most likely the route they're going if they're trying to go out there and get a top line center. And it's going to require a significant package. It's going to require one of the top prospects in the system, a first round pick, and maybe another prospect on top of it.
Probably a
Right.
good roster
And
player.
probably, yeah,
If it's a true first line center, you're
right.
gonna pay through the nose. That's just the nature of
But,
the NHL when you
but
look at centers and trades and defensemen and trades right
But
now,
this
right?
is why you accrue depth, right? So you
Yeah.
can make that move, not set your franchise back, get what you need, and you'll be a better team. And guess what? You haven't emptied your roster out. You still have other stuff you can trade and make moves with. You have cap space. This is what the Flyers have been setting up. So just because people on the internet are telling you that they haven't done this, they absolutely have done this. They
Well,
have
just
a
think
slew of
about
internal
yeah.
options.
I was just gonna say, just think about the prospects that they've added since this regime has kind of come into command here after Fletcher, right? Like they have expanded on their center depth tenfold. Like they had no centers before the last three drafts, essentially. So there's definitely a lot more depth to draw from for those trades.
Yeah, totally. Okay, let's move on to the second half of the show. Before we do, I just want to remind you to please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for notification, get notified when we release these episodes. And for the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes and give us a rating and a follow if you can. Again, that is the best way to support us. And always make sure to go to flyersnittygritty.com. All right, let's go through the lines. There are some changes to the lineup, and I will give credit to Charlie O'Connor. I saw his report of it. So, as of practice, Zegras, Dvorak, Konechny still together. Barkey, Couturier, Tippett still together. Michkov, Noah Cates, Bobby Brink still together. Fourth line seems to be remaining the same from last game. So Grunstrom, Peterson, and Gurbankin. I don't know how you take Gurbankin out of the lineup because he looked the best out of all the fourth liners. I almost wish that like you could put him at center, uh,
Yeah,
and
right. And just
and
get
take
Hathaway
Peter,
in there.
yeah, and take Peterson out of the lineup because he's been. I hate mocking him because he still plays center. It's a different role than the other guys. It's more
He
defensively
just
aware,
is
but
not
he's been
noticeable at all.
completely invisible. Like he's not physical. He's not fast.
Yeah.
Not a
I,
good playmaker at
I
the NHL level.
honestly, I'm just surprised that they kept these lines intact after having such a lackluster showing offensively last game. Like, I guess Talkett's not panicking. He's saying, hey, we played really well with these lines against the best team in the league. Let's not let one game kind of shift our whole lineup. But I don't know. I just think like you have to make some sort of change in the top three lines, especially after just you didn't generate anything offensively with
Yeah,
the
and
last
I'll
game.
I'll have an update about Bump, but I do wonder like, is there an option at one point in this season to move Zegras over to the middle, bump every center down, one, just roll four lines, and try to score on all four lines. It's not typical because the ice time distribution's not good and the roles don't match up, but I do wonder if, excuse me, if there's some appetite to do that.
I
Um,
wonder if that opens Zegras up more offensively as well. Like I can't help but notice it was a couple of weeks ago. I think I can't remember when exactly, but I know they put Tippett, Michkov, and Zegras together, and Zegras was playing center for like a whole period. Just the way he was distributing from the middle, like you could tell there's a difference to his game when he gets to play center, at least from my perspective. So I wonder if that helps unlock more offense from the team, having
yeah.
him in the middle, right?
I,
So
I think we would have seen more of Zegers in the middle if Dvorak and Zegers didn't play so well together. There was
yeah,
kind of
for
no
sure.
need for it from Tockett's perspective. But I would imagine the trust in Zegers has improved considerably from when he first joined this team.
He's been
Um,
good defensively, right? So
yeah, so if the Flyers for some reason were eliminated from the playoffs, I could definitely see them experiment with that for the end of the season if they like find themselves like in a impossible situation to make the playoffs, which I don't expect. But there probably will be some experimentation going on here, and I wonder like if Forrester didn't get injured, like what would these lines look like at this point? We never even got to see Michkov and Forrester together.
you probably wouldn't have Barkey in the lineup, is my guess, right? At this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I guess that's the silver lining. We got to see Barkey play.
And he's
Um,
ready, right? He's definitely NHL ready. So
yeah, yeah, that's where that's why I keep thinking about the offseason because like all I see is like, okay, we have too many wingers. We need to figure some of this stuff out. Let the season roll as it
yeah.
may, and then
Well,
pick your players for the NHL next season.
you
You
gotta
know?
imagine, not only do you have Barkey, right? Visualize it here. Not only do you have Barkey in this lineup, you're gonna have Martone in this lineup. That's one other spot you need to open up here. You're gonna have probably Alex Bump in this lineup. That's another spot. Probably Jet Lichenko. That's three potential spots to open up. Not to say all three guys will make this team next season, but they will have a good chance. So they're gonna
Yes.
have to do something because
Yeah.
there's no room right now.
They
So
they also could opt to be like, well, we'll worry about it when they make the team. We'll move
of
guys
course,
out
yeah,
from
right. Like
there.
let's make them earn it. Let's not move people out and kind of give them these positions.
Because
But yeah.
yeah, a lot of trade conversations go on for like 12 months, and
Oh,
then
of
eventually
course.
they pull the trigger when they're comfortable with it. Kind of what happened with the Cutter Gauthier situation and Trevor Zegers, right? Like they were probably thinking about moving Zegers. They got Cutter in. They're like, okay, he's what we were looking for. We're looking at our
Let's
top
move him
nine.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's move him now. So we might see some of that. That's a position I think Bobby Brink falls into, which is unfortunate, but
Because
they're
he's been
just too,
good. Yeah.
yeah, because he doesn't deserve to be, like the only reason I bring it up, he is unsigned, and he is my guess going to look for probably $3.5 to $4 million a year and term. You know, so he's going to want like 4 million over 4 years. I'm not sure the Flyers want to do that. They could bridge him and just kick it down the road, but when you think about the names that Vasili brought up, they don't need to. So it's going to get interesting. The defense is where we see real change Travis Sanheim now paired with Rasmus Ristolainen. We brought that up as a pairing, a while ago. That's something that we could see this season. York is now with Drysdale, Sealer with Juleson, and Emil Andre seems to be the healthy scratch for next game as of right now. That might not end up coming to fruition, but that does seem to be what they're going with: the three right-handed defensemen, three left-handed defensemen. I don't think people are going to be very happy about Andre, but he hasn't been the best of
No,
late.
I would say his game has definitely dropped off a bit, especially from the first few weeks after he was called up, right? Like he was having an impact almost on a nightly basis in a positive way. I think we can all safely say that that's fallen off a little bit. Like we haven't seen him positively impact the game for the Flyers as consistently. But we also have to understand that this is effectively his rookie season in the NHL. So there's going to be ups and downs, but you see the flashes there. So you have to hope that this is just a little break for him. He kind of gets rejuvenated. Maybe it's the spark that he needs. Like, hey, let's take you out of the lineup for a sec. We're not really liking where your game's going, but then it's something that he can take into account and turn himself around, right? Sometimes when you're a rookie, you need those little breaks. So hoping that he can kind of take what's
Yeah.
given to him by the coaching staff, right? And then implement it. So
I am very interested to see what a pairing of Sanheim and Ristolainen looks like and see if
they were
maybe
always effective. So
yeah, well, I want to see if Sanheim's offensive game can come out a little bit when he plays with somebody who plays more stay-at-home D than York. We know York and Drysdale are good friends. They're a little undersized, but again, Andre's smaller than York, so I think this could work. We'll see. I think it's not a bad time to try it. It's just unfortunate that Andre's out of the lineup. There's nowhere situation where I favor Juleson over Andre. I'd rather see Andre on the right hand side playing with Sealer or Sealer on the right hand side, whatever. But I think it's good to experiment with the top four a little bit. We'll see if this actually materializes into the roster. But I think it's temporary that Andre's out of the lineup. I can't see it being long term.
yeah, I think it's more of just a hey, like your game's fallen off a touch from where we probably want to be and where we've seen you perform earlier this season. So like I said, it's almost like a wake up call, right? Like let's get back on track and then hopefully this acts like that for him.
Yeah, and he's the youngest defenseman on the team. I guess outside of Drysdale, right? Same draft year, but um,
But it's his first year really in the NHL full time. Yeah, he hasn't
yeah,
had this opportunity really. So
yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how he does in a rebound because I imagine he won't be out of the lineup. And then goaltending as of right now is still Erson Kolsov. We'll see how that changes. But didn't want to make the paper movement here until we have word that Vladar is back. But I do anticipate it's probably going to happen any day now. To the Phantoms, uh, this is the most recent lineup. Richard playing with Tomasino and Robertson. Robertson had 2 goals last game. Um, had a big overtime goal. Carson Dorward has 3 goals over his last 2 games as well. He's back up in the lineup playing second line center. He's looks like he's coming around playing with Eklund and Marudi. Alexis Gendron playing with Goche and Kaplan. That has been a pretty consistent line. They've had that several times. And then Garrett Wilson, Zayd Wisdom, and Sawyer Bolton playing the big body fourth line there. Alex Bump is still out of the lineup. He is still listed as week to week. So he came back 1 game
unfortunate.
and was
Yeah.
not healthy. So yeah, it's unfortunate because the Phantoms have not been doing amazing and they lost their entire top line. Um, and I don't think that really helps their situation, especially
No.
goal scoring department.
I wonder, like, with Lane Pedersen being so ineffective, like, do you think we see Phil Tomasino at any point here?
I think they should explore it. I was actually thinking if Dorwart continues to play well, maybe they'll give him a
Could be him
chance
as well, yeah.
because he's more of a two-way guy than Tomasino.
I would say either or though, right? Like, because to your point, Pedersen's been invisible, so what do you lose giving one of these other guys a shot potentially?
Yeah, I feel you. That's kind of why I wanted to bring up that Dorward has been playing well and Robertson can obviously play center as well. He's just small, and I
Yeah,
can't see them opting to play him at center at the NHL. But he's been a good pickup. I mean,
he's
he's
scoring for them.
yeah, he's been maturing nicely as a player. He's still young too. he might have NHL upside. It's really his size that limits him, probably more than anything, because he's a primarily going to be a bottom six forward in the NHL if he does make the NHL. But Carson Dorward is an interesting one because he has NHL experience from last year. So, and obviously so does Tomasino, who had very good showing in the NHL. So we'll see. I personally would like to see a change there, but that word needs to come from the AHL first. So we'll keep an eye on their consistency. But if they continue to do, Tomasino has like I think 3 assists in 7 games, so he has not been like amazing for them. His production has gone down. He was slightly over a point per game playing for the Penguins minor league team. So now I don't know exactly. And again, he's playing with Anthony Richard, so he's playing with enough talent to put up points. So he might need more time. I think it might be Dorwart that I would give a nod to before Tomasino, just because
Yeah,
he
I
can
wouldn't be
play more
so
of that fourth line role too.
I wouldn't be surprised too, just because they gave him a bit of a look at the end of last season as well, right? And he's somebody that Briere signed out of college. So I think if he continues to play well, I don't see why they wouldn't try it over Peterson, just because Peterson hasn't had much of an effect at all.
Yeah.
So
And the nice part, he's not like 20, 21 years old. He's 23. So
yeah, he can actually withstand the physicality of the NHL, right? So
yeah, I just don't think he's played well enough for a consistent period of time to get a call, which is unfortunate. The defense, also, it's Yinning with Kyrou, Grons with Schmidt, McDonald with Gannett, and both Ty Murchison and Oliver Bonk are both interested, both unavailable. Ty Murchison is unavailable indefinitely with an upper body injury. And Oliver Bonk missed his second game in a row due to injury. Don't know exactly what that injury is.
hopefully it's
Um,
not a re-aggravation of whatever he was dealing with
yeah,
before. That's what you have to
I
hope.
again, this is why I expected Bonk to be playing in the AHL all season. Um, but you talked about moving Juleson. That's a guy I could see maybe getting some NHL time at the end of the season.
Yeah,
If
definitely get
Juleson is
some
not
reps.
here and the Flyers are out of the playoffs. But there's other names like Gannett, Kyrou, right-handed guys.
I could see Cairo as well potentially getting a shot at the end of the season, right? If people are hurt or if they move guys out. There's
Yeah,
always those last 5 games where the management might want to get a look at somebody, especially if they're out of the playoffs,
yeah.
right? So
And I don't know what's going on with this defense going into next year. Like I know that Yinning won't be around next year. Schmidt they brought in specifically most likely to re-sign, because they
well,
traded Ethan
I
Sampson for him.
I would say Bonk will probably get another full year in the AHL next season, especially considering if a lot of this season is eaten up by injury, right? I just don't think he will be NHL ready. That's probably
Yeah, I
just
I
not the
think
case.
I think that's probably the wiser thing, but I do think there's a chance it depends on his off season and how
I
he
mean, if he shows
comes
up and
in.
he's lights out at camp, he probably won't be, right? Just that's the track of defensemen, at least in terms of defensemen who make the NHL, like usually you're gonna have a guy
Yeah,
cooking that, lineup down there, try to kind of um
they're
become a guy that can do everything in all situations for you, like similar to like a Sandheim, right? They let him really cook in the AHL
yeah,
before
yeah,
they
yeah, totally.
graduated him.
I,
So
I, I think you're 100% right. I don't think they're going to pencil him in to the top six or whatever for next season. They're going to be like, make us get rid of defensemen, you know?
yeah, exactly. Like, force our hand essentially
Yep. I
type
think
thing.
that's what they're waiting for with Bonk. And maybe we'll see it by the end of the season with the Phantoms, right? And he still has the playoffs, to play in. Right now they're a playoff team still. So while they're not like doing amazing, they're still one of the better teams in the minors, which is good. And again, the goaltending is still Bjarnason and Parrots. Bjarnason has a great winning record. His numbers have dropped off a little bit, but that's more just overall team play. And I imagine Spencer Gill could join this team, though he missed I think he's still out. He had a significant injury also, so I don't know if they're going to rush him to the AHL. But there's some guys, around in the prospect pool that probably are getting close to making their way over to the Phantoms. I still believe that they should bring Berglund over to the
I
Phantoms.
I would say that's a goal for them. I think like after this season that we saw from him, just getting some more reps in the SHL and then also playing the way he did at World Juniors, like it might be the perfect time. I don't know what else he'll really have to do, like in that tournament and over in Sweden as well, right? It's probably time to graduate him. So
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think his numbers are still pretty low. Yeah, so he's got 6 points in 27 games playing in the SHL, 4 goals, 2 assists. Again, he started off with like no points in the first 20 games
yeah,
or
right.
something like that, or
Stark
17
difference, stark
games. So
difference.
he's definitely been improving. So I'm interested to see what happens with him. There's other names out there like Santeri Silku. He's playing, I think he's switching between Liga and the Mestis League, but he's got 8 points in 10 games in Liga. So that's actually pretty good. That's against men. Um, so he's another guy I could see them maybe trying to bring over. Like Oscar Eklund will probably not be re signed. So that's a guy I think could step into that role. He's another big body left winger. Um, there's other name Westergaard. I think they're gonna let him cook a little bit longer, but he also impressed. So I don't think he's gonna stay over in Europe too long. I think they'll probably want to get him over eventually as well. Nathan Quinn is still crushing it. A 1.26 point per game in the
That
queue.
might be a steal. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
late round pick. He's got 23 goals, 26 assists in 39 games. It's really good. Luchenko is not doing amazing. He's doing okay. No, he's doing good, but he's not doing amazing. He has
I,
13 points right now in 14 games for the
I
Bulldogs.
wonder for him if it's kind of like a case of he was the man on Guelph, everything deferred to him, where it's not the case on this team. Like there's just a lot of
Well, he
difference in how they run their power play and how they're, running their offense. Like he was kind of the go-to guy on
yeah,
Guelph, whereas he's not that same go-to guy on the Bulldogs, right?
yeah, there's definitely some adjustment there. So we'll have to again, I think people take a lot of these statistics too seriously. Like we see guys destroy the lower leagues and then never touch the NHL or even the AHL, and then we see other guys not destroy those leagues and turn out to be top six forwards in the NHL. So, I would again, it's a development process where you think the guy will be in the future, not where he is right now. So yeah, but there's definitely still some names out there that Matthew Guard is playing with his new team. He's got 6 points in 8 games. He actually was 6-6, and then he didn't put up points in his last 2 games. Um, there's still all the college guys and Carter Amico. People keep asking me about him. I have not been paying attention to him, but he did leave the NCAA. I don't know if we talked about it on here. But he's playing in the U.S. Hockey League right now. He's 5 games into that. He went to the Muskegon Lumberjacks. So he left Boston University, where he played 18 games, no points, and a
Oh,
minus
wow, I
seven.
didn't even realize that. So,
Yeah. So now he plays for, I remember Jackie Spiegel actually shared that out. So credit to her on that. But he had in 5 games, he still has no points, the -1 in the USHL. I think that injury probably just set him back, and I think we're just gonna have to give him time.
hard
He's
hard
always
for him to catch up after an injury like that. Who was another there was another Flyers player where that happened to recently. I think it was
Noah Powell.
yeah, right. And that ended up being a good thing for his development in a sense because he went back to junior and kind of ripped it up. So you have to hope for Amico this kind of gets the confidence back in his game, at least going back to the
Yeah,
USHL.
they took a high second round pick on him, so they're definitely invested in him. So we'll see how that works out. And Porter Martone, 28 points in 22 games. I don't know if he's scored a goal since he's been back. Maybe he has. I
I
don't
believe
remember.
so. Yeah, he ripped it
Yeah,
up like his first game back. So yeah.
yeah, but I have no worries about Porter Martone. He's a savage. Okay, I think that's it for us. Anything else you want to bring up?
No, just everybody check out flyersnittygritty.com. Tons of content up on the website. So we appreciate all the support.
Yeah. Hopefully we have some better results moving forward with some wins here. Would be nice if Flyers go on a streak, get everybody feeling good about the team again.
Hey,
Um,
before the Olympic break, that'd be ideal, but we'll
yeah,
see.
going hot. But either way, it's going to be a sprint after the Olympic break, so that should be interesting. And
Lots of hockey to
if
watch,
the
that's for
Flyers don't
sure.
make the playoffs, we will adjust our conversation and we will focus on what needs to happen next. And this incredibly important 2026 offseason. And I have a feeling it's gonna be a wild offseason. I really
I
do.
just think there's too many unknowns at this point with the roster. Like we talked about on the show before we end, right? Like I just think there's so many players that don't have a clear position for next season that the team is invested in. So it's like, what are you going to do? Something's got to give. So I think that's what makes it so interesting is the unknown of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe the Flyers trade Andre and Bobby Brink. That's
It's
possible.
totally possible.
That's
Yeah,
totally
exactly.
possible. All right. Just want to remind everybody to please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for notifications. For the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes. Give us a rating and a follow if you can. Again, if you made it this far, you haven't done those things, please do so now. We humbly, humbly appreciate it. It is the best way to support our show. And definitely, we're going to keep this show going. Also, shout out to our sponsors, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's. They have one of the best, if not the best, cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Also, Public Summit Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for your insurance adjustment needs. They will help facilitate the process between you and your insurance company and make sure you get the best claim possible. And shout out to sportspider.com. They are our partners. They aggregate sports content from all over the internet and organize them by your favorite teams. If you go there, our stuff is pinned at the top when we release an article. And again, the link to their site is both in the audio and video versions of this podcast, but it's easy, sportspider.com. And always make sure to check out flyersnittygritty.com. Vasili, thank you again for being awesome, my friend. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We love you guys. And remember, always stay gritty.